Hello, hello, hello. We are making a video together. It is a beautiful day. It is 6:05 p.m. on Monday. And the date today is June 9. So 2025. Yes, that is the day today. Making a beautiful video. With this beautiful home that we are getting ready and cleaned up, all cleaned up. This is so nice, that window, that long window. Very, very nice. Beautiful, beautiful home. And I'm gonna miss this home. But we have to sell the home. We have no other choice. The realtor is going to come over and give us price quote of what she thinks we should sell the house for. And I am aiming at 600,000. So we'll see what she says. So it just needs some cosmetic work on the facade, basically, but other than that, everything works, everything is amazing. Paul has fixed everything. And I have done a whole lot of work today. Removing the spider webs, that was hard work. You take a real long branch of a tree, a twig, with a lot of leaves on it, and you wipe that all the way around on the ceiling and the wall. And you can reel it and wrap it, and it's sticky, the spider web, very, very sticky, and there are cocoons hanging in there. And I don't know where these cocoons come from. I have the feeling those are for moths. Moths, they lay eggs there on the wall, and then there's a caterpillar that hangs on the wall from that moth, and the caterpillar then spins a net around itself and makes a cocoon, and then when it's ready to hatch and become a moth, then it will eat its way through that silk web and then open the wings and fly off. Okay, that's how it works. And the spiders, they make nets, just happen to make nets, and some of these cocoons end up entangled in those spider webs. And that's what's happening in this house and in the other house too. And it's okay. So what should I talk about? I had a bunch of stuff going through my head. I don't know if I want to talk about it. There's some negative things that are going through my brain, and it's not nice, it's not good, but I just want to warn people, particularly underage people. I want to warn them, any kid who lives with their parents, and if you see your mother or father or both, if you see that they're making you suffer in some way, in whatever way. Some people are really, really insane out there. Really insane. Maybe we should get into the psychology a little bit of it. I don't want to paint a picture and as Friedrich Nietzsche said, I was reading in his book, The Will to Power, okay, which I really recommend to everyone. He was reading that he is not the total proponent of neither pessimism nor peace with on every cost or something, like peace on, if it's peace on all cost or on any cost, then it's not peace anymore, obviously. So he is not 100% proponent of like always stay positive and always that becomes another ideology, that becomes another clinging, that becomes another resistance. So he is he is radically for nature, okay, as in nature, also the nature in us, okay, our natural beingness, our natural self. He says nature is the will to power. Okay, your natural self is the will to power. If you allow your natural self, you allow your own will to power. And that gets, of course, hijacked by different religions and different ideologies and different groups out there and cults and so on. They hijack anything, particularly Friedrich Nietzsche's books. They got hijacked by his own sister. I heard she falsified some of his books. And that got to the attention of Rudolf Steiner, who was a very young man at that time. And that made him real mad. That made Rudolf Steiner really mad. That the sister Elizabeth had the nerve to falsify Friedrich Nietzsche's books. I don't know if she was doing that in his last couple of years of existence because he had a form of dementia that was caused by syphilis. It's all really, really tragic. He caught it from bordels. It's really tragic. They didn't have any cure for that at that time. And he was a lonely man. He didn't have anyone. I have this funky feeling that he and his sister Elizabeth had something going on there in this particular way, if you know what I mean. And of course they would never talk about it publicly, but from all these things that I've been reading and picking up, so also psychically, I always look into it with intuition, and I can clearly see that Sister Elizabeth was intrigued by him because of his very independent mind, and she was also intrigued by doing something wrong, something that is regarded as morally wrong, which a lot of people are, of course. It adds this extra additional allure to it, to put it mildly. And for Friedrich Nietzsche, it was very simple. He had no girlfriend, okay? The only girl that has ever flirted with him was Lou Andreas Salome, and he wanted to marry her, and she said no because she wanted an open relationship. She was from the future, she was someone like me, a feminist, a very independent person. A very artistic and very authoritative person. So she was with Nietzsche. She was with him. That was his first, I think. And she was with another man named Paul Klee or something. I don't know. I mixed that up with the artist. But with a man named Paul, and that was also a philosopher. So she herself was a philosopher. And they had a 3-way relationship, but not the 2 men, but she with the 2 men. And they even took a photo where she was the horse carriage driver, and Friedrich and Paul were her 2 horses. And they took a photo like that, and they had a lot of fun doing this. They were very avant-garde, very, very much ahead of their time. That was in the late 1800s. Anyone who knows a little bit about the late 1800s, people were very, very conservative at that time. So these things were very unheard of. But Friedrich wanted her for himself, and he didn't want to share her, and that was okay for a while, but then he said, "No, I'm done with this now, I want to marry you." And she said, "No, I want to be free. I want open relationships." And then he got mad, and and then they completely lost touch with one another. First they wrote angry letters to each other for a while, but then that fizzled out, and he never had a girlfriend again. And he was also of course, because he was physically eccentric. He had this extremely exaggerated mustache, and it was the fashion at that time. Obviously, a lot of men had, you can see that in photos, a lot of men had a mustache and no other beard. But he had this, he took it to another level. He grew that mustache out like almost like whiskers. He looked kind of like a cat, sort of. And I think a lot of women didn't like that, or they were scared of him. And they were also scared of his loneliness and his clinginess and neediness, which he didn't show, but it was shining through his, just the way he sat there. He radiated it out. You can't hide these things. When you are in a mental state of neediness and clinginess, you cannot hide it. I have tried to hide that many times, but people see it anyway. So even if I don't say anything, they can sense that. So that's why it is so important that we take the journey into our own mind and say, it doesn't matter what they think. It doesn't matter if they think I'm clingy or needy. It doesn't matter. I'm not dependent. But the moment I think, it doesn't matter what they think. It doesn't matter that they think I'm needy. It doesn't matter that they see my neediness or whatever. In that very moment, I'm no longer needy and clingy, right? So the moment I realize it doesn't matter, the heck with these other people, right? I mean, it doesn't matter what they think of me, or whether I have bangs or my clothes are too tight or whatever, or I'm fat, or my eyebrows are overplucked, which I personally like. So I stick to it because I like it like that. I like my face better like this than to have these austere, widened eyebrows. Not unibrow, thank goodness I don't have a unibrow. There are a lot of women with unibrows. If they didn't plug, they would have grown together eyebrows that would grow all the way together. That's called a unibrow. I don't have that. I was accused of that because my eyebrows, in the past when I was making, in the very beginning of YouTube, when I first started showing myself, I didn't plug my eyebrows. I didn't even think about it. My mind was on other things. So, but I always felt a little uncomfortable. I didn't really know what it was. So then at some point I realized, dang, it's my eyebrows. If the eyebrows are too wide, they distort a face. They really do. 100%. So, but obviously that's not in fashion right now. What's in fashion right now are actually wide eyebrows. Almost like where they don't even pluck the eyebrows. But they pluck the eyebrows in a very specific way. Just the way it is told to you by Hollywood stars that are obviously your go-to role models, and they tell you have to plug the eyebrows exactly the way I do or else. That's not good, right? No, that's not good at all. So, and that's just one out of gazillions of examples here. Many examples. My haircut is another example. Okay, a PETA t-shirt. Fighting animal abuse around the world. Okay, so that is super, but it's not popular. So, and I don't care. I don't care what how my artwork looks like to other people. My brother was like, I know my brother there was something about my brother where he liked my artwork. He liked it, but he also wanted to make fun of it at the same time, which is not an anti-compliment. So I always take that as a compliment, of course. When there are people that criticize my artwork a lot, I take that as a compliment, of course. So, but I'm not going overboard like Francis Bacon. The artist Francis Bacon, he made very, very, very gruesome horror movie paintings. And he said that as soon as someone said they liked one of his paintings, he would have to destroy the painting. And there were art collectors that were already very, very interested in his work, and he made marathon. I mean, the way he was painting, like marathon style, like really, and his paintings were very gut type of paintings, like just throwing the paint out, and abstract type of paintings, but still depicting violent scenes and so on, but not paintings where it would take months and months like my stuff. So my stuff takes months to do. I worked over a year on this painting. Maybe a year and a half. That's how long it takes me to work on it. And I take my time at this because I'm very meticulous. I do like 10 paint applications. So almost like doing a car body paint or something, like over and over and over applications on it. I mean, these applications, they're like really thick. If you peel that off, you have a real thick layer or something. thick rubber layer. So I hope that never happens. But Francis Bacon, he would just take the paint and just slash it on, and real brutal. A British artist. Also somewhere, I think, somewhere around the century 1900s. That's when he lived. So 1910, 1920, I think that was the era when Francis Bacon was working. And because he painted fast, he produced many paintings. And the art collectors, they were terrified that he would be destroying more paintings. So they would quickly take his paintings and say, I'm not allowing you to destroy this just because someone said they liked it. Oh my gosh. And that's like another extreme. So I don't care either way. If someone likes my artwork, I like that actually. That's nice. But if someone doesn't like my artwork, that means absolutely nothing. It's actually a compliment too. So either way, it's a compliment. But it's, whether someone looks at my art or ignores it doesn't mean anything to me. Or people have criticized my stuff. So I would go in LA. I would go to gallerists. One black lady gallerist looked at my artwork with disdain, and I was real nice to her and everything, and she said, no, I'm not taking your artwork. That's way too regimented. There's nothing sexy in it. It's so I forgot how she worded herself. But I know how it comes across to her as neither masculine nor feminine, like neuter, and to her that's almost threatening. There's artwork that is like neuter, and I'm interpreting this now. That is what I see in it. So for a lot of gallerists, probably, particularly local gallerists that go by what they feel about the art, and that's much more honest than these art collectors that don't even go by whether they like it or not. So, no, good for her. She has her taste, and it's wonderful. Didn't mean anything to me at all, because I love my artwork for that very reason. Okay, for this cartoonish, almost like a chewing gum package type of style, like Bazooka or something, and the figures plump and neuter. Okay, there is no sex is not part of my artwork. Okay, and that's not because I'm like consciously, regimentedly opposed to that, having sex aspect in art. There's a lot of artists that include that, and there's an artist, Paul Wunderlich in Germany. His sculptures are very stylish and also very sensual, with boobs and showing nude women and all of that, but in an abstracted way, in a more exaggerated way. And I grew up with his work and other works. So my dad had many of his paintings, and also sculptures, bronze sculptures. So I grew up with this, and I respect that. I think that's great. So I'm not like totally opposed to it. But my art, and it has always been like this from childhood on, and also in puberty and later on, my art is completely neuter. My art is, that's a different dimension that I'm presenting here. My art is, if we want to reflect or associate this with anything that has to do with a reproduction, then you can say my artwork is representing the womb, the inside of the womb. So, a safe haven. You can call it womb. I'm perfectly fine with that. It is to me like the womb. And it is a safe haven. It is a paradise. It's another dimension. It is naive happiness, childlike happiness. It is a world where you don't have to lock your door. It is a world where everything is wonderful. My spaceships represent this world. Everything is wonderful. Okay. Everything is good. There is no danger. Okay. We're having fun. We're goofing around. We're all protective of one another. We're all supportive of one another. All of us beings. You know, it is a paradise. And that's wonderful. Up there is the Trump Tower with Donald Trump in it also as a figure. And it's all safe haven. You know, it's the amplituhedron dimension. That's what it is. That's what all of that is. And that's really, really nice. It's really wonderful. So the amplituhedron is one of the gods, one of the creators. I talked about this before in a previous video at the other house. Our creators are geometric, three-dimensional formations. In most of them have the form of obelisks, which are like they could be cubic, rectangular, tall, with a pyramid on the top, something like that. Or they have a hexagon, like they have 6 outside walls that are coming together like that. And that goes up like that, and then it has a pyramid on the top, something like this. So those are called obelisks. And we see this sometimes in natural formations of crystals. So they form themselves like this naturally. This is really, really something. This is really amazing. Really incredible. How these things like stalagmites and stalactites that can form themselves in caves, and the molecular structure in them causes that, even if they are formed through high mineral content water dripping down on this crystalline formation. They still form these types of obelistic formations that come out of it, that stick out of it, just because of this very regimented, amazing mineral structure, crystalline structure that forms itself in nature. And I heard people talk about this, that these natural obelisks that form themselves here on Earth in mineral and in crystal form, that they're beings, they're living beings, and they contain a form of consciousness. And I am completely on board, because I know that everything has a form of consciousness. I already know this. I've known this for 10 years and longer also, but in the past I didn't really have some kind of expression for it or explanation for this. It was more like a very, very vague and diffuse intuition. Even during my atheist years, I knew that everything is alive. Everything is conscious. Everything whizzing around us, and also the stuff we don't see. Okay, there's stuff going on all over the place. In thin air, there's stuff going on. And I saw it one time when I overdosed on Pieris japonica. I literally saw the blue god appear in the flickering sun in the middle of the living room, right here. About here, in the living room, right there. I was sitting over there. We had a table there. I was sewing after I had been drinking Pieris japonica tea non-stop, mixed with blueberry tea and salal tea and all of that. Made me so incredibly giddy. I was drunk on that stuff, and I drank more and more and more because it felt so good. I was washing dishes, and normally when I wash dishes, I'm not in a good mood. But at that day, I remember I was just laughing and laughing and laughing while I was washing dishes. That would have already been a red flag, but it wasn't, because of this concoction of blueberry, salal, and some other shrubs that are growing there, and Pieris japonica, all concocted. Not just the tea, but I cooked that for a long time in a pot, like stuffed into it. I mean, a concoction to the point where you can make medicinal tinctures out of it. It was that thick. So I was drinking that down, and I was like, man, that stuff is good. And because the salal is actually real strong pain medicine, it was like an extreme sedative. It was like, I don't know, like one of those Quaaludes or something. Very, very similar. Probably has very similar alkaloids in it. So with that, I wasn't even reflecting over how drunk I was getting. I was like, it just is. It's all good. And the sun in the middle of the living room, there's nothing wrong with it. It is the most normal thing in the world. Hello, sun, flickering sun, like the one that Henry Rollins tattooed on his back. A flickering sun, the symbol of psychedelics. This is obviously happening a lot. It's a portal. That's what it is. It's a portal from another dimension. And you can only see that when you are really, really wasted on one or another psychedelic. So, and I saw it, and it was totally normal. And in the middle of the sun, the blue god. The way I painted. So, let's see if I can show you real quick how how the eye of the blue god looks like. Here's the eye of the blue god. Okay, there it is, the eye of the blue god. It didn't show anything else, only the eye. Rectangular shaped with the white, and then very, very simplistic. And that was in the middle of that sun. So it showed itself the way I paint. And that was the way of the blue god communicating with me. That's why I know that was the blue god. And it didn't say anything, but I felt like the message was, what are you doing? Make up your mind. Don't play Russian roulette with some psychedelics that are growing out there, and then you act like you didn't even suspect that to be containing some dangerous alkaloids. Of course I suspected it. That's why I took it. No one else has, I think, experimented with it. No one else has. There are some cases where people poisoned themselves to death with it. There are cases of that. And I don't know how that came about, whether they deliberately ate that and poisoned themselves. When you eat it, you have to eat a whole lot in order to get really, really sick. So you have to eat, I don't know, maybe like 15 leaves, raw leaves. And I've done that while I had this last year in October, when I had the sciatica, nerve inflammation. So I didn't want to take the pain medicine, because pain medicine like Tylenol and even aspirin, I don't want to take pain medicine. I want to avoid that if I can. I'd rather take a whole plant substance, which is better for us, of course. So I picked a whole lot of Pieris japonica. I brought it to the other house in a pillowcase, and so that I have it there too to make tea with. And just on the way to the other house, I was sitting in the passenger seat of the van. It flared up real bad. And I took a whole lot of the leaves of Pieris japonica. I would say I probably ate 20 of those leaves. And boy, did I get sick when we got to the other house. I mean, it's not like you first have it first feels really good and everything, but then after a while, and I noticed that eating the raw leaves didn't even give me a hallucinogenic effect. So, and it just made me very sick. So I think it was the combination of these with the other plants also. It was the combination of all of that, and particularly in the concoction, like cooking it in a pot. I have the feeling that's what brought it all out. Kind of like the ayahuasca tea that they make, where they put different plants, different psychedelic plants together. For example, in the Amazon rainforest, they have two plants that are highly psychedelic. One is called Banisteriopsis caapi, and the other one is called Psychotria viridis. And these two plants, the Banisteriopsis caapi is a climbing plant that climbs up on other trees, and the Psychotria viridis is a shrub or tree that has very, very long leaves. Also interesting to note that a lot of psychedelic plants have very elongated lance-shaped leaves. So be easy on those whenever you decide to eat a leaf from a tree. So it's probably not such a good idea to do. Particularly, I don't know, for people that are not used to it. So you can get used to this. You can build up quite an immunity to those alkaloids, to those poisons that are in it. And all of these are listed as highly poisonous, and oleander is another one. So Paul showed me the photo of oleander that has very elongated leaves as well. And oleander is even more toxic, and ingesting even just a little bit of the leaf can cause sickness and stuff like this. So the dangerous part of it, of these psychedelic plants like oleander, Pieris japonica, or Jimson weed, for example, the danger of those is that the alkaloids can cause cardiac arrest. It slows the heart rate so far down that you pass out. And when you pass out and you don't revive your heart, then your heart can slump down and go into a paralysis state, into where it's just it stops working, it stops pumping, because it is so drugged up. And then in that state, if someone isn't being revived and shaken up and given charcoal and have someone do something like pound on the chest or shake that person, if that doesn't happen, if you're not brought back into an upright position, you can pass out and not wake up. That can very easily happen, and that almost happened to me that night when I drank too much of that concoction. It started with the hallucination. It started with the giddiness and the happiness, then the hallucination, and then the cardiac slowing down. So to the point where I could not walk anymore, and I hollered for Paul. I don't even know where Paul was, and whether he was upstairs or something. But he came rushing over, and I said, I'm passing out right there in the kitchen. And he had to help me. He had to hold me under my shoulder. He had to walk me over to the recliner chair that was standing there. And I was slumping. I can't even remember Paul guiding me over, but I know that's what was happening. And I thought I saw the floor. Right before I got to the recliner chair, I saw the floor, and I thought, this is it. I am going down to the floor. No. And it was real. It was not funny. It was really, really scary. It was so scary. It was like, this is it. I am taking my Earthian spacesuit off. That's what it felt like. I felt like this is the end. I see the floor, and the way that felt, the way my heart rate was slowing down, it was so scary for the rest of the cells, this entire being. Yeah, we are composed of so many layers of consciousness and awareness. Not just this, but we have an astral body that is all the way around us. All of that. all of that is our soul. Our soul is in all of that. And the soul was also afraid. And the soul didn't want to abandon that vessel. And the astral body didn't want to. And my brain didn't want to. And my peripheral nervous system didn't want to do this. Everything was high alert. Everything was, guys, this is dangerous, okay? We need to, or let's call them girls, okay? They are girl cells, okay? So the cells were all like, we need to do something here to prevent the heart from stopping. And so he brought me to the recliner. I slumped into it. I fell unconscious in the recliner. And I slumped over like this with my head. And it felt kind of nice, almost. Very dangerous. And so Paul was really scared at that point. He lifted my back up again, and he shook me real hard, shaking me. So I came back into consciousness. And I said, oh, you need to go in the kitchen. you need to get me Dr. Scholl's charcoal drink. But I only had the charcoal capsules. But that was okay too. So get me a glass of water. Dr. Scholl's charcoal capsules. I knew where they were. They're in that cabinet there. Go get that. And he rushed over, got it. I drank that down. And that probably saved my life. Dr. Richard Scholl's charcoal capsules. They're also called intestinal formula number 2. Okay, that's it. It's a lifesaver in a situation like that. But it was so bad that then I went into the next stage, the diarrhea stage and the vomiting stage. So it goes through when you drink a lot of, you go through all of these stages, and it's not fun. In the beginning, yeah, it's fun, but you pay the price. Because the last stages, they are definitely, if you survive it, you go into the vomiting and diarrhea stage. And after a while, I don't know whether I dragged myself to the toilet or Paul helped me. I got to the toilet and it was so bad that I had diarrhea and vomiting at the same time, and it didn't stop. And I was there on the floor of the bathroom, and I said, Paul, I can't do this on my own. You're going to have to call 911. Got to call an ambulance. I don't know how I can do it. Big mistake, because I would have made it. But I didn't know. So then I dragged myself into the next room that was empty at that time. We didn't have the big bed in there. And I tried to rest there on the floor until the ambulance people came. And that was a big ordeal, all of this, my goodness. Fat, real fat people that could... You would think they have some kind of strength, but they had no strength at all. So they could not even lift me up. Then they had to call for backup, and really skinny athletic guys came with a stretcher, and they like 4 people or 5 people had to lift me up on that stretcher. That was so embarrassing, my gosh. And then they wanted to give me caffeine injection, and I said no, caffeine injections. And I was like really adamant about it. And I kept on looking at the heart rate monitor, and it showed 50, which is extremely unusual for me because my heart rate is normally around 100 or 95. That is my normal anxiety state, right? And then one lady said, "I'm jealous. I wished I had a heart rate." I didn't want to talk about anything. I was just so worried about Kenny, our Great Dane, albino Great Dane, and Paul and Kenny following the ambulance, and the only thing I could think of is, Blue God, protect Kenny and Paul in the Prius that were following us. I could only think about Kenny. Oh my gosh. But today I would say there's no need to feel jealous because that is not my normal state. My normal state is extreme anxiety of 100. Well, that's nothing to be jealous of, right? So, obviously, I'm not a psychopath, okay? So, because the psychopath, they have a low resting heart rate. I have a very high resting heart rate, so that already sets me apart. And then there's numerous other things that set me apart, of course, as well. But as Friedrich Nietzsche said, and I feel like that's me, Friedrich Nietzsche. Okay, I don't know why, but that is like one and the same soul. That's one and the same unit. Okay? Not that body, but the soul, of course, the mind. Okay, so when he said that he did not accept Schopenhauer, and I have met the guy who is Schopenhauer today. I literally met the guy who is Schopenhauer soul today. I couldn't believe it that I would get to see that person. And guess what? That Schopenhauer soul is always famous, no matter where he appears. And that I'm a little jealous of. But other than that, I am never okay with where the Schopenhauer soul mental state is at. So in the Schopenhauer existence as well as in his current existence. His name is Gary in Mentem. So that is the soul of Arthur Schopenhauer. Okay. Arthur Schopenhauer. If I recall the name correctly, I hope I do. So, but Nietzsche said that doesn't work. It's completely out the window. This type of pessimism and nihilism is totally non-applicable. Okay, you cannot use it. It's unusable. Okay, and that's what it is. And so, of course, I still feel the same way today. I'm talking about this now towards the end of the video, so that is a little bit less inconspicuous, because this is a little bit embarrassing to talk about this, the incarnation stuff, because obviously it's like, for most people it's like, what are you have some grandiose paranoia? You think you're Nietzsche, huh? But Nietzsche laughed about all of that, and Nietzsche said he is for nature. He is not for the pessimists, and he's not for the religious people, particularly not for the Christians. The Christians were his number one enemy, red flag, kind of. And the reason why is because he read the Bible several times over. And he went through many different stages of soul development in that one lifetime. I mean, the kind of soul growing that he has done just in these 60 years that he existed as Friedrich Nietzsche, it's astonishing. Starting out as a teenager, following into his father's footsteps. His father was a pastor in a church. His father having high hopes for his son. I think he was the firstborn, and he was supposed to take on that priesthood or whatever. And so that was the first stage. And he calls that stage the load-bearing camel. So later on he talked about that in his books. The load-bearing camel, if you just accept hook, line, and sinker everything your dad told you and wants you to become and be. And as a teenager, of course, many of us don't think through this, because how can we think through it if we don't have all of that, the necessary foundation of experience, not just knowledge, but knowledge in woven into bottom up processing and thinking, free thinking about it, and questioning and experiencing and so on. If we don't have this package, then how can we question? So as a teenager, we are always totally dumbfounded. And so was Friedrich Nietzsche, and he thought, I want to do the right thing and become a real good pastor. Just let me read this Bible many times and really read it, really understand it. And the more he understood it, the less he liked it. Because you have to really, really understand it before you have to really know what you're reading there in order to even turn the whole thing upside down and throw it in the trash can. Right? Like a dirty underwear or an deflated balloon or other things, which I don't want to mention right now. That you turn inside out and throw it in the trash can. And that's what you need to do with the Christian religion. Yeah, it's as simple as that, And with all the other religions, too. Okay? Yes, so Jehovah's Witnesses are not exempt. I'm sorry. They have some things going for themselves that are a little bit better, but it's still not our go-to last spoon of wisdom, if we want to call it that. No, it's not. It's not wisdom. And even dogmatic Buddhism is not wisdom. I'm sorry to say it. The Dalai Lama is mistaken and confused. He's a child, never grew up. It's very tragic, all of that. Very tragic. They can do anything they want with this man. Okay, he works for the corporate agenda and probably doesn't even know that he does. So, because he's like a child, and the corporate agenda can take anyone and make them do anything they want to, endorse anything they want them to endorse. It's very sad. This is really bad. And that's the case with many religious type of figures. I'm not going to call them leaders, because they are not leaders, sorry. Okay. A wise person like Nietzsche and Buddha and Sri Krishnamurti, okay? Those are leaders. Those are bright lamps that show people the path. But even though those in their bodies go through enormous suffering and exploring and introspection and shredding themselves to pieces, as Friedrich Nietzsche said, and you have to burn yourself into ashes in order to come back out like the phoenix out of the ashes. You come back out like a soul bird that opens their wings and flies off, freed from the baggage of self and ego and dishonesty and deception of the whole human species, right? So, of course, what he means by that, and Jiddu Krishnamurti talked about it too, they mean that we have to dismantle the ego. We have to burn the ego into ashes in order to come out free and completely independent. So I guess that's enough for today. So started out the video warning kids, if you see your parents crazy or toxic or maybe even dangerous or even saying dangerous things, walk away. Get a social worker, walk away. If you are to the mercy to someone that becomes more and more abusive, walk away. That's the best you can do. And don't talk to them about it. Don't say anything. Secretly walk away. Secretly pack up and secretly walk away. Walk away while they're not in the house. That's the best you can do. You don't want a dangerous confrontation. Because someone who talks dangerous stuff, like, I don't want to get into this one murder case now, but it's just so infinitely sad. But when they start talking real dangerous stuff, you better take that seriously. That's almost like they're saying, I'm warning you about me, I'm going to do something, right? Maybe they're actually warning you about it. So you have a little bit of time to secretly pack up and leave and take your little brother with you, okay? So get the hell out of there. Talk to a social worker. Get far away. Go to someone where they have guns to protect you. So very important message, because it's been going on through my head while I was sewing upstairs, and when I saw all the murder cases come up, you bet, like one after another. And it's there's a reason why I watch these murder cases, because I'm trying to understand people better, and I'm also trying to warn people, and I want to make the world better, and I want to also help the criminals. I want to help everyone with my videos. I want to bring awareness to it. Very important book to read, The Will to Power by Friedrich Nietzsche. Very important homework here. It's for you, not for my ego or whatever. Do it for yourself. Okay? You will come out the other end with a much widened horizon. Necessary for you to do. Okay? Anyway, peace and love for all living beings.